Hello, Jeff Livingston again, historian with the Hawaiian Railway Society. Today I'd like to talk about restoration. That's one of the big parts of the society. When the society began in 1971, which was the actual official date, restoration had already started on the first piece of equipment acquired by the railway in 1970. This was Wailua Agriculture Company number 6, commonly referred to as Waco 6. The restoration began before it left Wailua, and in the ensuing years, Waco 6 became the logo of the Hawaiian Railway Society. Waco 6 was located outside of the plantation's headquarters for 18 years before the Hawaiian Railway Society acquired it. It was then moved to Naval Magazine ʻŌlelo, and restoration began. Restoration of the locomotive included a complete stripping of the boiler, rebuilding, a new water tank, and a complete refurbishment of all of the appliances. Waco 6, after somewhere between 88 and 96 weeks of restoration, 88 if you count just the time at ʻŌlelo, 96 if you count for the time when it started at Wailua, was finally placed back under steam in November of 1972. She pulled one of her first trains shortly thereafter at ʻŌlelo as the Society became the 100th chapter of the National Railway Locomotive Society. This was the first restoration. Concurrent with that, restoration began on Oahu Railway and Land Company locomotive number 12. Number 12 was then located at Bishop Museum, having been on display at Ala Moana for a number of years, then moved to Pier 41, where it lived there with a bunch of XOR&L equipment that came out of Ala Moana. It was finally taken to Bishop, and Bishop displayed it, but didn't really have the wherewithal to do any work on it. Members of the Hawaiian Railway Society approached Bishop, got permission to do some work on the locomotive, and began just a general cleanup, a little bit of rust busting, remove the flaking paint. So while it was at Bishop, the locomotive restoration actually began. Later, the locomotive was moved to ʻŌlelo, and not too long after that was moved to the current location at Ewa. The Hawaiian Railway Society was blessed with a large amount of equipment donated to the Society for preservation. They were also cursed by a large amount of railway equipment donated to the Society for restoration. Society was quite small, all volunteers, didn't have a big bank account, and had a large amount of equipment. This equipment included, in addition to Waco 6, OR&L number 12 from Bishop, eventually OR&L coach number 2, also from Bishop, coach 57, a commuter coach that was acquired and sent from the mainland, 2 OR&L flat cars, and a Plymouth locomotive, which has since went over to Maui. But those were purchased by members of the fledgling HRS. A weed spray car which was given to the society by the scrappers who were finishing up the end of life on ORNL. A 65-ton Whitcomb, number 174, donated by the Navy from ʻŌlelo. A 45-ton Whitcomb, number 302, also from ʻŌlelo. Another 45-ton locomotive, 423, that came out of Westlock, and a number of boxcars, 2 tank cars, a gondola, and other equipment that was all donated by the Navy from ʻŌlelo. The Army also got involved and donated a 25-ton General Electric diesel locomotive and 12 ex-Army flat cars. All of those came out of the Pier 41 area. With this much equipment and shallow pockets, a lot of it sat for a long time. The Society's efforts early on was to finish the move to Eva and begin restoration of the right-of-way so they could actually operate a locomotive with passenger cars, offering rides to anyone who happened to come along. At the time, the Society was operating under a right of entry that the state would grant us, since the state owns the right-of-way. So incrementally, we would have a right of entry for X distance. We would get that portion operational and have to request an extension of the right of entry so we could do more restoration. Now, I say we, as much as I would love to say I was here, I was not. I would have actually absolutely loved to have been here from the beginning. ORNL 12, whose minor restoration work started at Bishop, was not actually cosmetically restored until 2011. But the results were phenomenal. This restoration was performed under the leadership of Mr. Virgil Ruick, who has since moved to the mainland but still keeps in constant touch and is still a member of our board of directors. Once Waco 6 was operational, unfortunately, it developed a problem with the boiler, and the boiler had to be condemned. So Waco 6, although it is our flagship logo locomotive, is no longer operational. Concentration was given to diesel locomotives 423 and 302. 174 sat in the yard for a considerable amount of time and was used for spare parts. Eventually, though, 174 was restored to operation. Following the restoration of Waco 6, though, at Eva, the next major project undertaken by the Society was the restoration of Parlor Observation Car 64. This car was built in 1900 at the Oahu Railway and Land Company shops in Ivole. It was under the direction of master car builder John Hughes and was Benjamin Franklin Dillingham private car. It was built specifically for him. Although it had been on display at Ala Moana for some time, once it was moved to Pier 41 and then later to Bishop, it, like the rest of the railroad equipment, fell on some hard times. While at Bishop, it was protected but not preserved. Now, this is in no way, shape, or form the fault of Bishop Museum. They weren't set up to handle this kind of equipment, which is why we wound up with it at HRS. It arrived at HRS in not the greatest condition. However, one man, the late Dave Lomas, took this project on and decided that he was going to restore this car. The restoration by Mr. Lomas took between 1988 and 1994. He did most of the work himself. The car, when he finished, was almost as good as new, and better in some respects. 64, to the best of our knowledge, is one of, if not the oldest, all-wood operating passenger car in the United States. What makes 64 very unique is this large observation platform. Most observation cars, the platform is 8 to 10 feet in depth. And this is on a full-size standard gauge train. 64 being narrow gauge and far shorter, almost 1/3 of her length is the observation platform. John Hughes had been working for the San Francisco Bridge Company before Dillingham hired him away. And when we took the deck off of this observation car, you could see the bridge builder in John Hughes. It is a self-supporting unit on an all-wood frame with steel plate that is an absolute engineering phenomena. It's a gorgeous thing to behold if you're an engineer. 64 was placed in service and it operates regularly once a month. You can ride 64. It does cost a little extra, and it only holds 16 passengers. So should you decide you would like to ride this historic car, please give the Society a call and we can set you up. And it's also available for charters. Pricing on all of that is available through the office at HRS. In the interim, a lot of other small restoration projects took place. This could be anywhere from just painting something, to replacing a piece of wood, to polishing a bell. All of these activities add to the overall preservation of whatever piece of equipment is being worked on. A major restoration project was started in 2010 with the rebuilding of Coach 57. Coach 57 was built in 1921, again in the shops at ʻŌlelo, again under the direction and by design of John Hughes, the master car builder. It was sold to the U.S. Army Air Force in 1948 after the ORNL abandoned its main line for use on Hickam Airfield. Somehow or other, it wound up at Naval Ammunition Depot, ʻŌlelo. There were 15 cars originally sold to the Army Air Force, 14 of which were burned when railroad operations ceased. The only surviving car of this type is in our hands now at Eva. From NAD, ʻŌlelo, it made its way to the mainland and eventually made its way back to Hawaii. It was not in the greatest of shape. It was operational, but the roof leaked, rot had set in, maintenance was way overdue. So the restoration project was started by a gentleman, unfortunately no longer with us, the late John D'Esso. It began with the disassembly of the car into each of its component parts. Every piece of wood, every piece of metal, everything was taken apart piece by piece. Every bolt, every washer, every nut. John DiEsso then made drawings of all of these parts and pieces. As it progressed, and it took a long time to disassemble, it became just a skeleton of its former self. Once the sides and ends were totally removed, the entire frame was picked up and moved inside of the engine shed, and rebuilding began. In this photograph, the frame has been completed, which included 2 new side sills, 1 intermediate sill, and a major repair to another intermediate sill, new end beams, and the trucks had been completely rebuilt. We could then start building up the body. Unfortunately, John could not complete this project, and it lay dormant for a few years until Brian Namba, a young carpenter, took an interest and continued with the restoration. Brian did an extensive amount of work on the car, up to and including getting the roof boards on, although not complete. He went off to do other bigger and better things, and the project manager for 57 is now Kevin Yamamoto, our director of restoration. Under Kevin's care, the siding has been replaced. The car has a preliminary paint job. The interior has a preliminary paint job. And the seats are being restored one by one. So today, Coach 57 is much improved. Siding replaced, ends going on, and since this picture was taken, additional work has also occurred. The other end of the car, showing work in progress. It now even says Oahu Railway across the letterboard like it should. And the interior of the car has come a long way. And as I said, it's still working on the seats. All of the wood parts of the seats, all the slats, all the backs, have been essentially completed, and the metal framing that you see here is being restored. These seats are flip-over type, so you can take the back and change it so that you can have 4 people looking at each other, all looking the same direction, and if the train changes direction, you can flip the seat over and face the same direction the train is coming. Restoration is exceedingly important, and now that the society has grown more, we are doing more restoration and more efforts in that regard. We're also doing preservation. So the items that are already restored to a certain degree, we don't want them to backslide. The 2 current projects, major projects, is Coach 57, and as I discussed in an earlier program, the Merci boxcar from France. So just as a quick update, this is the American side of the Merci boxcar. If you saw the earlier program that we did, you will notice that this side now has all of the decoration included and is considered complete. The roof is complete, and the other side, the French side of the car, we anticipate having it complete by the end of September or before. We're planning a rededication of this car because it is a result of the spirit of aloha of the people of Hawaii in 1948 that this car is here as a thank you for 2 boxcar loads of sugar sent to France by Hawaii citizens. But getting back to the restoration, there are 2 more projects upcoming. The Society intends to remanufacture and fabricate the Pearl City rail bus. The ORNL built this rail bus in 1921. It's built on a Ford Model TT chassis, and we hope to recreate it. We have a chassis, we have engines, we have rear ends, we have front ends, and we are going to start that reconstruction. It's not really a restoration since there's none of the original available. We'll probably be starting that reconstruction after the first of the year. The second major project we're looking at is ORNL locomotive number 85. This is the only surviving Oahu Railway and Land Company road locomotive remaining in existence. During World War II, it was the Barbers Point Express. It ran from Honolulu out to Barbers Point and back, carrying Marines and sailors on liberty on a daily basis. She's back on her home rails, and she's been here for 10 years, but we haven't done anything significant to improve her appearance. The planning and estimating is in progress right now for that project, and it will be happening probably toward the middle to the end of next year. What can you do? Do you have an interest in woodworking? Are you a welder? Pipe fitter? What skills do you have? What's your hobbies? We need help. And these projects don't have to be long-term, long commitment. We need things like the woodwork replaced in the cab of Waco 6, one piece at a time. Maybe 3-4 hours at a shot. The same for ORNL 12. 12 is a great looking locomotive, but it would look even better if that woodwork was reinstalled. Can you help us out? Welding. We are currently working on EVA 1, one of our earliest plantation locomotives. We need welders. We've got new deck plate cut. We've got everything cleaned up, ready to go, but we don't have sufficient welding capability, i.e. people, to complete the job. So we'd love your help. We'd love you to come out, see what we're doing. If you find it interesting, come on back out. No long-term commitment required. If you can give us 4 hours once a month, that's more than we have right now, and we deeply appreciate it. Initially, when the Railway Society got started at ʻŌlelo, the restoration and return to operation of Waco 6, although it took somewhere between 88 and 96 weeks, depending upon how you count it, that was an all-volunteer effort. A lot of people came out to help. We need you again. Come out and help. We have projects. We have things you can do. We are right now receiving a lot of assistance from the Aloha chapter of the Daughters of American Revolution. They have assisted with the Merci car primarily, but they've also assisted with Coach 57. And they don't know it yet, but I'll have another project for them before too long. What can you do to help? This is the history of Hawaii. This is the engine, literally, that drove the Hawaiian economy, that grew Oahu, that made the sugar plantations profitable, that made the pineapple worthwhile. We don't want to see it forgotten. There's only about 7 miles of the original right-of-way left. And it's under threat. A lot of development, a lot of changes. Progress is good, but we have to remember the history and the work that the people that went before us put in to make all of this viable. Without your help, yeah, we'll continue, we'll carry on, but we'd sure like to have you join us. I give you my word, no one will ask you to cut grass or whack weeds or shovel dirt. Although if you would like to, that can be arranged also. So I appeal to you, come out, see what we're about, ride the train. It's a fully narrated train ride, takes about 90 minutes. Yeah, the ice cream trains take a little bit longer because they stop in Coalina at 2 scoops and everybody can get off and grab an ice cream. It's an enjoyable and inexpensive family outing. It can be a family tradition. Volunteers are critical to the survival of the Hawaiian Railway Society. As you can tell, like myself, we're not getting any younger, but we're still out there giving it our all. Come join us. Come see what we're about. Help us grow the society and maintain and preserve the railroading history, not only of Oahu, but of Hawaii. Is lurking out in the yard, waiting for caring hands to restore. There are Kahului Railroad flat cars. There are other pieces of equipment that are important. Doesn't have to be long-term, doesn't have to be too difficult. Even chipping paint and throwing on some primer is greatly appreciated. So I hope you'll come join us, and I hope you'll enjoy yourself, number one, and find that this is a worthwhile organization to spend some of your time at and to help us maintain this history. And please join us on the 2nd of February next year for the rededication of the Merci boxcar. Thanks.